Hello and welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for another incredible episode with today's extra special guest. And today we have the lovely Jane Vendermeer. Hello, Jane.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
It's so lovely having you on the show today, Jane. And for those of you that haven't come across Jane, and I'm surprised if you haven't, she's actually a very well-known and well-regarded stylist and personal branding stylist. So her business, Finesse Your Style, has been going for a number of years, and she's worked globally with C-suite people, C-suite women. She's also worked and been a proponent for women over a certain age, whether that's 40 or 50, being seen and having the style and the presence.
Yeah.
But rather than me talk too much about what you do and how you've come to be doing it, Jane, do you want to explain to the viewers, how does somebody get into personal styling and how does somebody become like a globally recognized personal stylist?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I was asked that actually yesterday in a shop. So I've approached it in my little way. I'm a qualified fashion designer. When I was a young girl, that's all I wanted to do. I might add, that's all I knew you could do in fashion. You know, you're a designer, that was it. And I love that, but I realized I had created a business very young, and I realized putting things together and knowing the art of how to really enhance what we've all been blessed with, which of course is different for every single woman. I realized that I had a gift in that area. I also went back to study separately to fashion design, to study styling. And then I put the Jane spin on it all. I've worked professionally for 30 odd years in the fashion industry. So, you know, you pick up a few nuggets along the way, and I because I work with super busy women who, you know, are fairly time poor, you've got to get to the point rather quickly and give women implementable, easy steps that they can take and run and have quite a big impact very quickly. So I Jane-ified what I was taught. Yeah.
I really love how you recognize, and it makes me laugh when I think back to my own high school. It was a Catholic high school, so we had about 5 professions: mother, teacher, none, of course, being a Catholic high school. So that was 3 of the professions, and then the other 2 were like secretary, and I can't remember the 5th one. But I was at school with people that were state champions and this champion and that champion, and one of the sisters of somebody I was at school with has actually been in Steven Spielberg movies. I always remember these options that we were given for the career choice. And, so I really hear you when you say.
Were you in a co-ed school or a girls' school?
It was an all-girls school, and so bless them, they just didn't recognise that there were more options, and that they actually had a very high-achieving cohort of women and girls at that age. But I hear when you say that you liked fashion and becoming a fashion designer was the only option that was available to you.
Because I also went to a Catholic school, and it was a very academic school, so it was creative, but really only up to a point. So there weren't a lot of options. Like, I found my own option, and this was obviously pre-internet, and you know, you had to research in a different way, but I just knew in all my heart, in my blood, in my being, that it was something in fashion, which I'm lucky I know. I know it's very hard when you're not sure. I also think, as a creative person, and in this lifetime that we're in, we don't have to pick one profession forever. We can do something for a while and then learn, re-educate ourselves, and maybe do a course correct, or maybe do a complete 180 and try something else. We're very lucky, I think, now.
Well, and I think that even going back to your experiences, you know, that sense of knowing, I'm really glad to hear that you had that sense of knowing even back then, because not everybody has it, and not everybody, like we were discussing, has the environment at that younger age. With all of the different things that I hear, you know, starting off as a fashion designer, moving into styling and realizing, oh, there is some stuff I can study here, and I can become a qualified stylist and work in that space. And then I love how you described it as you Janified it, and for your market, you know, business professional women, you Janified it and developed it so that you could present it in a way that was authentic to you and made sense for the people that you were working with.
Yes.
That journey, that what I hear is an entrepreneurial journey, means that you would obviously have had different ups and downs and ins and outs.
Oh, yes.
What would you say today success means to you?
Yes, great question. To me, there are a few things. In a way, in no particular order, however, this one comes out first, is inner peace. I think inner peace is massive. Two very easy words that have big implications. Personal growth, discernment, bravery, making a difference in the world, doing what I love and what I'm good at, which is in the fashion space and creative space. And also, you know, being lucky enough to travel the world. I love that, because I think you keep growing and learning. And also the three words which are my values here are ease, freedom, and flexibility. So to have a life that has ease, freedom, and flexibility, and that's how I grow.
Wow, I really like that, because you have a little bit of a shopping list there of the other elements around what does success mean. But the ease, freedom, and flexibility, that to me really resonates, and it's something that whatever age and whatever's happening with your business, family, friends, whatever, it's something that seems to resonate in terms of your values and your direction, if you like. People sometimes talk about flow and direction, and it doesn't necessarily mean that life doesn't have its ups and downs, but there can be an overall direction to where you're going. So ease, flexibility, and freedom, I think, are three really, really lovely words.
I feel that too. I feel when we are in our, I think things are meant to be easeful. Doesn't mean they're easy all the time, but I think when things are really hard, sometimes you're not meant to go that direction at this point in time or at all. Sometimes it's meant to tilt you in a way that's a course correct, but it takes a while to learn how to navigate that and how to see that and then embrace that in life and in business.
Yeah, I have lived by that philosophy for quite a number of years now, that whole element around if things flow or if they don't flow. If they don't flow, and this is, I think, something that as you get older, you start to recognize it quicker. It's not that it's easier, but it's just quicker.
You're right. Yes.
And it's something that I think when you're defining success, that's why, you know, ease, flexibility, and freedom are three very beautiful words there.
Absolutely.
So if I was to talk to you then about this incredible journey and this self-understanding that you've developed, especially working with women, and style can be such a personalized.
Absolutely.
You know, people, when they're presenting, they're kind of presenting their soul and their, you know, this is who I am, and all of my strengths and vulnerabilities in that.
Yes.
What sort of tips and suggestions would you then have for people to keep creating that successful mindset when dealing with an area that could actually be quite challenging for many people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think in this age we live in, where obviously social media is a massive part of all of our lives, and in many ways we only see the good bits, and often then you'll see checklists and things. But I've always felt, and I live by, actually it's the small decisions every single day that we do that keep us on track, that keep our mindset going in a certain direction. Now, it doesn't matter if we miss the odd day here and there, but when it becomes a habit, I think that's when we can feel ourselves dropping or falling or feeling a bit blah, and then too many days of blah end up really big blah, and then that's harder to pull yourself out of. So my first point would be with mindset would be that our mornings are magic. As a reformed night owl, I spent most of my youth as a night owl. Now on the complete reverse, by choice. And I know that how that time, that precious time in the mornings, is how we set up our day. And that quiet time before all the noise of the day starts, and the, you know, who we talk to in business and whatever, that time before then is how we set up our day. And so these days I get up usually when it's dark and sit there, you know, in yoga pants or whatever, and watch the sunrise usually. And I will usually go into some level of sort of like a meditation, tuning in, whatever you want to call it, for at least half an hour. If there's time, I'll do even more. And usually what happens, because it's the cone of Jane, is I now have a notebook beside me, and even if it's in the dark, and because it's that clarity of the untouched optimism of the day, where all the ideas flow. And so I write down all the ideas and they just flow beautifully, flow with ease. And so that time is precious. It is precious. And the days I do that, I feel like I can take on the world.
What a wonderful, wonderful, thank you so much for sharing that beautiful habit. And I love how you described how so wonderfully it's about building these habits and having these habits as part of your routine, so that you do them just like brushing your teeth or having a shower, but recognizing that sometimes you might fall off the wagon and not have it every day as a routine, and that's okay as well. But it's when you stop doing those habits that it can become a bit more problematic to get back onto that routine again. And I just wanted to add, because not everybody may want to be a reformed night owl or look for
I agree.
Getting up early, and for people, I'm aware that, you know, with children and husbands and wives and whatever, there can be some lifestyles. So I think the concept of what you were talking about is absolutely beautiful. Taking that time out for yourself, to recharge, to have some quiet time, and to just have that time out. And it's funny because today we actually had some beautiful sun out for a little bit of time. And so in between interviews and talking to people and talking to clients, I actually went and had lunch and sat in the sun. And then after I finished eating, I just sat there and did nothing and recharged my battery. I felt like the sun was kind of plugged into me and was recharging me. So similar to what you were talking about, of taking that quiet time, quietening the mind, the emotions, the body, and just making those conscious choices to take that me time, I think is really, really important to set up as a habit. or a routine. And you raise a beautiful point there about how in that space, that's in that stillness, in that quiet place, that's when your creativity and your inner voice can be heard, because you've quietened everything else.
Absolutely.
And that's where you get that inspiration from.
That is the key. Yes. We live in this age where we fill every quiet moment all the time. And girls often ask me this, and, Jane, I'm going for a walk and I'm what podcast and this and that. And I say, like, that's good, but what about you just be? Like, when I go for a walk, usually ideas flood in. It's being around nature, and you don't need to do these kind of practices. Like, even 5 minutes where you can block everything out is better than nothing. Whatever you can do. When I was in corporate, I used to I'd dash out in between meetings and go and stand in the sunshine, just for those few minutes. If I can block everything out, just to sort of to ground yourself again and get back in your body and out of our heads. We're in our heads so much. Obviously, we're busy, we're doing things, we've got long lists, all the rest of it. If we can get back into our bodies, ground ourselves, intuition, all those things, and the more you do it, the easier it is. I remember being told meditate years ago, and I remember thinking that sounds horrible, A, B, boring, and C, I just can't do it. It's really hard. But it really is practice. It just is. And it comes in all forms. Like, sometimes gardening is meditation, sometimes cooking is, sometimes sewing is, sometimes whatever creative thing. Yeah.
I love how you're presenting all of these different ways, because it's if you're that way inclined, then yes, waking up in the morning and watching the sunrise. But for other people, it can be the meditative state of watching the food cook that they've prepared, or painting, or whatever it might be. I was also struck by, for many years, I wrote a book on mindful leadership, and I was teaching a lot of mindfulness practices, and people tend to know about the breathing one.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about being grounded in your body, and it's not always practical or simple to walk outside the office and take your shoes off and put your feet on grass. But what you can do in those sorts of situations is still, as you're drinking water, actually just focus on the water that you're drinking. It sounds really simple, but it's actually quite difficult to do, because your brain and everything will still be wanting to do many other things. So that whole practice of being present, if you are eating an apple, thinking of nothing but the apple, and being with the apple if you're taking some water, just being focused with the water. So whatever you choose, and whatever way you might choose to do it, these are all just tips or suggestions for how to ground you back into your body, so that you're then more present, and from that place of being more present, able to make clearer decisions about what it is you do and don't want to be doing, and what kind of life you want to be creating.
Yes, spot on. Because I think the adrenaline, the pace, the adrenaline, it's really addictive. It's really, really, when I was in my 20s, it seemed so fun, and it's fast, and the fashion industry is a really fast-paced industry, as a few are. But before you know it, you're talking a million miles an hour, and then you're walking, and your behavior and everything is so heightened, and you're not breathing, and you're certainly not breathing right down to your tummy, and we're out of our bodies. And like, there's long-term effects with that. Like, that's a whole thing, isn't it?
There's all sorts of research that's come out, because when you're stressed and those hormones get introduced into your a little bit of stress is normal, and that's what our bodies are designed for, from the old days of running away from the big animal if it wants to try and eat you.
Yeah.
But having that, like you're talking about, the constant stress where you're talking fast, walking fast, and you're breathing from your chest and not from your stomach. In those situations where you've got this constant flood of dopamine into your system, that sustained level of stress is actually very unhealthy, and that's where heart disease and all the different types of diseases that we talk about.
Yeah.
So these, what we're talking about in terms of mindset success, are also very important health tips that we're discussing.
Absolutely.
To help you, if your body gets full of all of this stress hormone, and without actually having a place for it to go, then that can create health issues. And that's where even going for a walk around the block, or taking the drink of water or the apple, or standing in the sunshine, all of these different, what I would call pattern interrupts. Because they can take a little bit of time to create as healthy habits and healthy patterns.
Absolutely.
But starting somewhere,
behavior, isn't it? And that's what's really hard. Yeah,
it is. And so, in terms of learning this new behavior, what sort of suggestions would you make? Because you said you work with very busy corporate women who are exactly what we're talking about here. You know, they need to talk fast, work fast, be louder, because typically they're in rooms full of men, and so their softer voices mean that they may need to speak louder and talk louder and faster than what is natural to them to be heard and be in authority. So what sort of suggestions do you make for your clients like that?
So, you know, I talk all about styling, obviously. That's what they come to me for. But I do infuse a lot of this, just my daily practices. And it's not from a preach angle, because it's not a one-stop answer for all of us, of course. But if I can then infuse some suggestions of slowing down your breathing, connecting to your body, maybe it's considering food options, maybe it's, I'll probably encourage you to have more water. And if I, watch you, it's a fine line. It's a fine line, because I don't want, and I don't think it comes across as judgment, but if you're sitting there having a lot of fizzy drinks, then I might say, maybe every second one, have some water, and, start it that way. But it's conscious living, and lead by example of conscious living. So, and that also goes right through to what we let in to our personal bubble. So that can be with all the white noise in life. So TV and social media and all these things, do we need that in our cone of Jane? And it's being discerning, because it's such an overload and it jars an already heightened nervous system. So I think it's about making really good choices there.
I like that word discernment, because it really is the like the flow and ease that you were talking about earlier. It's about recognizing, because in some situations something may actually flow and be good to be around at that point in time, and then other points in time it can be more of a stimulus, and you're already too stimulated. So understanding when you may need to ramp up, being more stimulated and hyper alert, and ramp down so that you're breathing better, you're resting more. I think one of the fallacies that people think is that if they're in a heightened stressful situation, say in a work environment, and they need to think clearly to try and see what some of the options are to work through that, people have forgotten that actually what we were talking about, slowing your heart, slowing your breathing, slowing this, slowing that, coming into that stillness is actually a greater place of clarity than being in, the hype and having like crisis meetings and everybody talking about what are all the different options and what are this and what are that. that
And
will create more hype.
Yes, and it fuels it, doesn't it? Which is, and another aspect of that is when you can create more pockets of stillness, you can then bring it back to what you intuitively feel about the situation. It's really, really hard to tap into that when the external is coming at you from every direction all day, every day. And you know, people who report to you, all the rest of it, they follow you everywhere, you know. So it's very hard to do that. So you need to carve out time and little pockets of opportunities so that you can bring it back to what's your take on it, your most Jane version, because usually that version is what is so unique, what doesn't, you know, they talk about the blue sky method, which is there is no competition when we are truly working with our skill set, our unique skill set. But I think when we're in the noise, we get pulled in other directions, and it's very easy to sort of lose your true north because we're so pulled.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that noise and a lot of what we're talking about is that you can start off and be so beautifully calm and centered, and then get to the bus stop or get in the car and you're taken out of center, and you come back, go out of center and come back. And life is pretty much one of those ebbs and flows where you come in and out of center. And what we're talking about is habits and routines and things that if you have something like, you know, brushing teeth, having a shower set up as a routine, then it also means that when you're in those stressful situations and feeling like you need to make a decision and you don't have much time and everybody's kind of going down this one pathway, but it doesn't quite feel right, that routine, it might even be that, you know, when you go to the bathroom, after you go to the bathroom, you go and have a glass of water, and all you do is you focus on drinking that glass of water. Whatever that routine might be that you've set up, your brain then becomes pre-programmed to know that that is your time and that is your quiet time to kind of reset back into balance. So I think when you're describing that noise, that, you know, as we walk out into the day and we become surrounded by whatever that noise is, great ways of coming back to that stillness and that sense of connection to yourself and grounding to yourself, so that you have that inner wisdom and intuitive knowing.
Yes.
Can be many of these different things in your toolkit that you can create and use.
Absolutely. And especially if what you feel innately, I often use the phrase, I always felt over the course of my life, and even when you asked me about secondary school, I felt like I was the salmon swimming upstream, because I thought quite differently to everyone else. Here I was at an academic school, and yet, although I'm probably, you know, half a business brain, half a creative brain, and at various times throughout my life, it's so if you think a little bit differently, and, you know, the whole room is pushing for one direction, then to stay strong within yourself, which can be really hard if everyone's fairly domineering or full on. Those moments, those pockets, those habits that bring you back to sense of self are the key.
Aren't they? And we could talk, this is such an incredible conversation. We could keep talking for hours, but Jane, what is the best way for people to get hold of you?
2 ways. LinkedIn is probably the best way, under my name, and or my business website, which is finesseyourstyle.com. That's probably the 2 best ways. Yeah.
And if you were to give some advice quickly to your younger self, what might that advice be?
Yeah. You know, when we're younger, I love that part of it is naivety. And so we think we can do anything. that's a lovely thing to have. And then we get conditioned, and somehow our thinking becomes a bit more limited. So I would whisper in her ear, keep thinking really big. Don't be hemmed in by other people's expectations, other people's limiting thoughts, and always trust your little uniqueness, because that is what is so special. I know when I was younger, I'd hide elements of who I am to conform. Now I don't, or don't so much. Yeah, but you know, when you're younger, we all think we need to fit in, and or many, not everyone, but yeah. So I'd encourage you to be truly who you are, and also find someone or a group of people who can mentor you, who you can ask and really grow with, who know way more than you do. Like, always surround yourself with either like-minded or people you can learn from.
What wonderful, wonderful advice to your younger self. And I really do like the whole thinking big and remembering that as a child, the universe was like your playground, and you could go and do and be anything that you wanted to be.
Yep.
It's been so wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Jane.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. It's been a delight. Time's gone so quickly, so thank you so much.
It has. It's just flown by. And thank you again to all the people watching. And we really love all your comments and feedback about the show and how much you enjoy all of these different tips. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.